changing the name of citizen identification card to identification card.
Israeli army to prepare for resumption in battle following truce.
Livelihoods for people in Western Nghe and Biosphere Reserve.
Hello, so good to see you again in today's news. I am Hoàng Yến and so good to see you again. Here we go, the first headline of the show. The law on identification was passed by the National Assembly on the morning of November 27th, including 7 chapters and 46 articles, including the renaming of the law on identification and identification cards.
Accordingly, the newly passed law on identification clearly states the changed information fields shown on identification cards. It includes facial photos, personal identification number, surname, middle name and birth name, date of birth, sex, place of birth registration, nationality, residence, card issuance date and expiration date. Thus, compared to the Citizen Identification Law 2014, information fields about hometown and fingerprints have been removed and do not need to be shown on the identification card. Information in the identity database includes identity information. Biometric information includes facial image, fingerprint, iris, DNA, voice, job. With the full scientific integration of information in the identification card along with the form and method of number management to ensure universality, changing the name to an identification card will help make state management more effective, more scientific, serving the government's digital transformation, digital economy, and digital society.
This afternoon, the Provincial People's Committee just organized a workshop on people-foreign affairs in the process of socio-economic integration and development. Nghệ An is one of the localities assessed to be effective in people foreign affairs. In addition to the party foreign affairs and the state foreign affairs, people foreign affairs have actively contributed to promoting Nghệ An's province relations with many countries around the world, promoting the image of the homeland, the country and the cultural values of Nghệ An to international friends, promoting the image, potential and advantages of Nghệ An province to foreign investors, thereby contributing an important part in the province's socio-economic development. At the workshop, the participants listened to presentation on people's foreign affairs in the process of socio-economic integration and development, such as people foreign affairs in political, economic, and cultural relationships, current status of foreign affairs in the field of Vietnam-Laos border security, exploiting the indigenous knowledge of ethnic minorities in Western Nghệ An in developing international products, promoting the province's images in a new way. Meanwhile, the Chief of Staff of Israeli Army said that Israel would resume the military campaign in Gaza Strip after the ceasefire with Hamas ends.
The Israeli army said it had created a framework for the group of hostages, including children and women, to be returned during the temporary ceasefire. Once the truce ends, the Israeli army will reopen the operation with the determination to continue freeing hostages and completely dissolve Hamas. On the same day, the Hamas terror group confirmed the deaths of several senior commanders who were targeted by Israel during the fighting in the Gaza Strip. This is one of the rare times Hamas has announced the loss of its forces since the outbreak of the conflict with Israel on October 7. Currently, Hamas and Israel are implementing a 4-day ceasefire, and the truce has entered the 3rd day with 41 hostages and 78 prisoners having been released.
Upcoming are some updated news.
Ships 8004 and 8002 of the Vietnam Coast Guard left a port in Hai Phong City on November 27 for a joint patrol with the China Coast Guard in the waters adjacent to the demarcation line of the Gulf of Tonkin. This is the 7th joint patrol between Vietnam and China, following the signing of a fishery cooperation agreement in the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin between the two countries. The Coast Guard forces are scheduled to conduct the joint patrol over 13 points, from the southeast of Tran Island to the northeast of Kong County Island of the demarcation line of the Gulf of Tonkin. The two sides will hold telephone exchanges, inspect and monitor fishing vessels of the two countries fishing in the waters adjacent to the demarcation line. Furthermore, the Vietnam Coast Guard Force, in collaboration with northern coastal provinces of Vietnam, will inspect the enforcement of regulations against illegal, unreported, and unregulated IUU fishing and deal with violations.
According to the Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers, Vietnam's tuna exports to some main markets have increased over the same period. Specifically, tuna exports recorded an increase again in the US and Canada after many months of decline. For the first time since the beginning of 2023, Vietnam's tuna export value returned to a level nearly equivalent to the same period last year. In addition, tuna exports to Chile, the Philippines, and South Korea also increased again.
China's health ministry on Sunday urged local authorities to increase the number of fever clinics as the country grapples with a surge in respiratory illnesses in its first full winter since easing COVID-19 restrictions. The continued increase in acute respiratory illnesses reported recently in China is caused by various respiratory pathogens. The spike became a global issue last week when the World Health Organization asked China for more information, citing a report on clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children by the Program for Monitoring Emerging Diseases. The influenza would peak this winter and spring, while Mycoplasma pneumoniae infection would remain high in some areas. It also warned of the risk of a rebound in COVID infections.
Now let's move to today's story. Nghệ An is one of the two provinces having large forest areas in the country and the largest western biosphere reserve in the Southeast Asia. To effectively manage, protect, and promote the potential of this biosphere reserve, it is necessary to create sustainable livelihood for mountainous people. Covering an area of more than 1.3 million hectares of natural forest, Western Nghệ An Biosphere Reserve is the largest biosphere reserve in Southeast Asia. There are many households living there, mainly ethnic minorities, whose lives still face many difficulties. Since the ancient times, people here have relied mainly on forests. So, to create livelihood for local people, the Reserve Management Board has taken many solutions such as developing livestock and growing medicinal herbs to improve people's lives.
The unit has deployed staff along with local people and authorities to identify potentials and strengths, thereby guiding people to grow medicinal plants as well as exploiting ecotourism potentials in association with livelihood development.
In addition to propaganda work, the unit's functional forces have focused on strengthening forest protection patrols, working with people to develop forest livelihoods in associate with forest protection work.
Creating sustainable livelihood for people in the core and buffer zones of Western Nghệ An Biosphere Reserve by units and localities not only contributes to increasing people's income, but also helps better manage and protect natural forests. This is an important premise for Nghệ An to sell carbon credits to businesses. The last story just ended our program today. Thank you so much for your attention. Goodbye for now and see you next time.